Well, you're very welcome to Bealtaine Cottage here in the west of Ireland. That's Jack. I want to talk a little bit about Lunacer because Lunacer falls on the very last day of this month. So it falls on the 31st of July, and the celebrations usually begin around sundown. But for a kind of a universality, I'm inclined to say about 6 o'clock, about 6 p.m. And that's when, for me, the day turns. And it carries on then all the way through to the very last rays of light on the first day of Lunacer itself, which is August the 1st. It falls roughly between the midsummer solstice and the autumn equinox, so about halfway between. And there are lots of people who would look to the moon and the stars for perhaps a more intimate date of Lunacer. But when I create my calendar each year, and all the months of the year are written in Old Irish and Gaelic, in the old Celtic language, I try to stick to a kind of universality for all of what is the Celtic celebrations that are part and parcel of my life here in Bealtaine Cottage in the west of Ireland. I want to read a little bit from my book, Walking Between Worlds, simply because at this time of the year there is a very strong sense of the liminality of it all. It is a very liminal time. Wherever you have the ancient Celtic festivals being celebrated, there is a sense of literally the walking between worlds. And the time to connect, reconnect with the ancestors and all the loved ones who've gone before, and all the people that you were dear to, and all of those whose bloodline you have inherited. And you know, multiple bloodlines. Even within my own family, my father, of course, from the great tribe of the O'Neills, the O'Neills of County Tyrone, and my mother from a very old English family from Hampshire, but who in her own blood carried Celtic origins, because her grandmother, her grandmother's mother, was born in County Cork. So these beautiful crisscrossing of cultures and bloodlines and DNA, it's so profuse. It's within every one of us. And many people say that, you know, for this small island that is Ireland, this sacred land, the diaspora from Ireland is immense. You only have to scratch the surface a little bit of your own history and you will find Celtic roots. It's amazing. And of course, it wasn't just Ireland, but, you know, Scotland and Wales and England. I mean, one of the greatest Celtic queens that ever rode a chariot into war to defend her people was Boudica, from the Iceni tribe, from East Anglia in England. And then you had the Gauls in northern France and Spain, who suffered the most incredible Holocaust brought down upon them by the Roman Empire. So all these Celtic, you know, everyone carries this close affinity with Mother Earth from whatever tribe they come from. So I want to read a little bit from this book, and in relation to the ancient tribe of the Tuatha Dé Danann. Living among the remnants of ancient tribes as I do, here in the west of Ireland, watching skies with stars so bright they illuminate the night, it is easy to believe in the she, even revere them at times. There comes a shift in perception when one's closest allies are the invisible forces of nature. Where does reality begin and end? What is actual and what is reflection? For much of it is coloured by perception. This was something debated by the Romantic poets as they often explored the world around them, using reflections as they held up mirrors to gaze into nature. Ireland is a land often referred to as the land of mist and magic. There are many tales relating to the emergence of fairies in Irish folklore. Many legends recall how once great queens, kings and warriors became part of the she upon death. In turn, these mortals went on to establish new kingdoms in the ancient mounds and hills of the landscape we know today. It is easy to regard these ancient sites with reverence and understanding, for even though millennia of time separate us from them, they are part of our ancestral being. The true origin of the legendary Tua Dudanan lies somewhere between the layers of world we inhabit. The name means literally the folk of the god whose mother is Dana. The Great Mother. It's all about her. Beautiful scent of patchouli. I managed to get some patchouli incense sticks, or joss sticks as we used to call them. So despite all the hot weather and indeed the recent rain, I've managed to get out into the gardens and do work and do some cutting back, because the growth has been phenomenal. I mean, it's been wonderful. You know, that little bit of heat, it was quite a big bit of heat really, but that little bit of heat was just so welcome as far as the plants were concerned. And again, because everything's been planted so very closely, all the moisture was kept in around the roots and the soil. So I'll just take you over to the tunnel. So I finally managed to get some watering done here in the polytunnel, and I've got some mulch spread over the beds as well, which will help to retain that moisture. It's been quite an endurance test once more for the polytunnel, because of course I don't have mains water and I rely on my spring well, and when it comes to a drought, the polytunnel is the kind of last on the list for water. And as you can see, the water here has gone a little bit green. I've tried to keep that in that barrel because of course it's important just to keep the barrel filled up, so there is a little bit of moisture evaporation from that. But in another few days there should be enough fresh water coming up from the spring well, once the aquifers have got that pressure put back on them, you know, from the earth, because the earth shrinks around the aquifer and then you sort of lose some of the water. But once the earth has been sort of plumped back up again with the moisture from the rain, the spring well should be fine for running from this tap, and I'll be able to use this water and fill it up with fresh. The interesting aspects of living almost off-grid. Well, the apples have remained fine during the drought, and in fact, they should start to plump up now that the water is back in the soil. Not a lot of apples this year, but with all apple trees, there's a sort of a biennial harvest. So every second year you'd expect a good harvest. And it really is to do with the tree being able to rest. A little bit like the way the soil used to be rested, you know, years ago, decades ago, when they used to do rotational crops. And you'd have a 4-bed or a 4-field rotational system, and every fourth field was left fallow. So each year one of those 4 fields would be left fallow. That was in the days, of course, when farmers really thought about the importance of fertility and the earth, and there wasn't access to the expensive fertilizers which are now spread all over the land and cause pollution in the river systems, as we know. Cutting the hedges now is the safe time to do it. So I've been trimming, just trimming, not really cutting, but trimming. But I've got a lot of clearing up to do, as you can see. And the beautiful Crocosmia montbretia is all coming into bloom. That lovely flaming orange. Gorgeous. And just behind over there is the Bistort superba. And lots of poppy seeds, which are wonderful to gather, and they don't even need drying out really. You can use them almost immediately in cooking and baking. One of my favourite cakes is lemon and poppy seed cake. So there should be enough for quite a lot of cakes in these poppy heads. So I'm just here by the kitchen sink, washing a few dishes, when I noticed a little movement, and indeed it is Mr. Ratty, who is there in the window box. Can you see him? And he's eating the seeds off the pansies. They're very interesting to observe because they're so intelligent. And once they get to know you, they don't seem to mind you at all. They seem to work things out, you know? Who's friendly and who's not. Of course, a lot of these lovely flowers have now gone to seed because they've been in the window box since the 7th of February was when I planted out those window boxes. I remember the date because it's on YouTube. I actually made the window boxes, you see. Oh, he's loving those seeds. Beautiful. He's quite choosy as well. Oh, there he is, look. Oh, that's a, oh, there he is, very close. Yeah. Now there's something you don't often see, you see? You don't often see a beautiful creature harvesting and eating the pansy seeds, or sometimes because the flowers are very tasty as well. Well, I've got to say about my new phone that it's much easier to make videos, and it was well worth my huge investment, which it was, a huge amount of money. But in terms of getting the message of Bealtaine Cottage out onto social media, it's money well spent. So I'm still experimenting with the camera. I'm still understanding how it all works and trying to get the best out of it. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I don't ask anyone to subscribe. I don't have advertising on my channel. If you want to support the Bealtaine Project, I've got lots of books for sale, and they're on bealtainecottage.com, and there is a link below this video. Blessings to you all.